everybody have a workbook? If you don't, we have one. Does everybody have a pen? If you don't, we have one. It's not a bad thing. Would you like a pen? Okay. How many people were here last year? Oh, I don't know. You guys I remember because you got the purple shirts and I love the logo. What we're going to talk about today is a little bit different than what we talked about last year, so hopefully I won't bore you. We've got about 2.5 hours this morning to talk about this. All the things Gary mentioned, customer service, open book management, visioning, are all other subjects which are somewhat related to what we're going to talk about, but they're actually different subjects, okay? So today, if you look at page 2 of your workbook, it'll tell you what we're going to talk about. I want to explain this whole thing of stages of organizational growth, and I want to talk about how our leadership role, as Gary said, needs to adjust and change as the organization grows, if we want it to be healthy and fun. If you want it to be miserable, you don't have to change. And then I want to help you all to sort of get clear on where you're at in your organization and where you want to go, and then come up with some action steps that'll help you adapt your style to where the organization is at, or adjust where the organization is at to fit your style, because really either one is okay as long as they're in alignment. It's going to work. Okay? At the bottom of the page, on page 2, is our training compact, which is actually a good example of stage 3, which we're going to get to later, of organizational growth, which is operating in prime, where you start to develop systems and structures that you didn't need at earlier stages. So we developed this one in 1994 when we started Zing Training, which is our training business. I'm going to give you our history in just a minute. It's one of the most important things we ever did was this training compact. If you were going to lift one idea from today having nothing to do with anything, I would take this one, because it's changed our whole organization for the better. Maggie Bayless, who's the managing partner at Zing Train, has the same passion for training that I have for food. And so she came, we started Zing Train in 1994. It was just her up in her attic with a computer and a fax modem. You guys remember fax modem? A little 3-fold brochure and a business card that cost $1,000 to get started. So she was in the startup stage, the beginning stage, which we're going to get to also. But one of the first things she did for us in the organization was this. The piece on the left that outlines what the trainer does, that's what I'm going to do today. When she wrote this up, it was pretty much, I think, what me and my partner Paul were trying to do at the deli, which by that point we had about 125, 130 employees. We were trying to do that. It was helpful that she wrote it down and made it clear. We were going to provide clear expectations, give people the resources to learn what they needed to learn, recognize good work when it happened, and then reward it in whatever way we decided was good or that we agreed was good. So that was helpful, but not hugely impactful, I guess. The piece on the right, though, was probably one of the most radical things we've ever done in our 33-year history. Who do you think used to be responsible for the effectiveness of the trainees' training? The trainer. It doesn't work. I affectionately refer to it as high school. They can make you show up at class, but you could demonstrate daily you will learn nothing. Just to prove your freedom and independence. One day, sometimes not until after high school, you realize it's your life, not theirs. And that not learning anything isn't helping anybody. Okay? So this training compact, for me, is a good example of the systems that can be put in place at stage 3, which we didn't need when we opened the deli in 1982, because we just had 2 employees. It was easier. But when we had 130, 140, 150, this was a huge shift. So in terms of today's training, while we're here this morning, how can you all effectively take responsibility for your learning? Page 2 here. That was good. One way is to make weird faces at me, and then I'll know.
Oh, the real bone in the
Yeah, the bold, dark one. There you go. How can you take effective responsibility this morning? Paying attention is excellent. You're going to be here. You might as well. Your emails will be there later, waiting for you. I'm sorry, sir?
Take notes.
Yeah, taking notes. If you're like me, if I write it down, I can remember it. If I don't write it down, it's gone. What else? Yeah, ask questions. If you're thinking it, there's probably 6 to 8 other people in the room thinking the same thing. And then please, you're not obligated to sit still. I don't sit still very well. Many of you probably don't either. Get up, move around. There's more coffee cake out there. I would eat it. We shipped it down from Michigan. There's more coffee out there. If you're in the food business like we are, you live on caffeine, so it's important. And then to be quite honest with you, if you want to learn something about management, about halfway through this morning, get up. We got plenty of seats. Get up and move to a different part of the room. It won't bother me. What do you think will happen if you move to a different part of the room? Wait, no, it's okay. What did you say?
You might get a different perspective.
You might get a different perspective. In fact, it's highly likely that you will get a different perspective. The odds of sitting here and then seeing the same things as you see over there are nil. But one of the things I could tell you about organizations is, as they grow, people start just repeating the same pattern. I don't know if y'all notice this. Does anybody have like a manager's meeting? Did you ever notice that almost everybody sits in the same seat almost every time? If you want to really screw them up, get there a few minutes early and sit in Bill's seat. They don't have his name on it, but he'll come in the room and he'll be like, and then he'll like agonize over whether he should tell you to get out of his seat, even though it's not really his seat, or whether he should move to a different seat. And then he might move to a different seat, and then he's in Sandra's seat, and then we don't know, she doesn't know what to do either. It's true. And if you really want to scare them, if there's just get up in the middle of the meeting and move your chair to a different spot. And they'll all be like, why'd you do that? I don't know. It just felt like moving. But my point is, as organizations grow, people get stuck in patterns. We get stuck in our ruts, right? And so this morning, for me, is about helping you get out of the ruts that you're in. Some of them you may like, and then by all means, stay in them. But some of them we just get in, and we don't even know we're in them. And so my job today is to sort of shine a little bit of light, okay? This training compact is one little piece. The things that Elnie in her handwriting, which is infinitely better than mine, wrote up here, these are sort of sub-themes I want to just put in your mind. I want to, as per what I just said, help you with greater understanding of organizational existence. Did anybody get into their business because they wanted to study organizations? There's a few coaches here, so you might have, I guess. Okay, so part of what we've done over the years, while we're making food and giving customer service, is that we realized pretty early on if we didn't study organizational life and get good at it, we were going to be burned out, mad, quit, or out of business. Okay? So helping you have more understanding is one of my goals, just to give you a better picture. The second thing I want to try to do is get you to accept what's going on in the world. If you fight against nature, what's going to happen? It won't go well. Okay, I'm going to come back to vision over and over. I'm not going to do a visioning session today, but it's a key element of the work that we're going to talk about. Learning is critical to all of this. In the end of the day, I'm going to tell you why at the end, but trust is an underlying theme in all this, and who we trust, and then having fun. Who likes to have fun? About half of you. Okay. Just checking, man. I don't know. Does this sound like the right morning? Okay. This is the only one Gary's got. I think it's the only seminar today.
This morning.
This morning, till later, yeah. Okay. Let me tell you about our organization, give you a little history. It's the same history as I gave last year, those of you who are here, sorry. Although we have some new additions to the history. But so I grew up in Chicago. To give you geographical context, that's about 4 hours west of Ann Arbor. Very large city. I don't like big cities, but I went up to Ann Arbor to go to school at University of Michigan. It's a lot smaller.
There's 100,000 people plus about 35,000 students. We don't quite classify the students as people. It's a different type. Anyway, it's about, like I said, about a 4-hour drive east of Chicago, about an hour west of Detroit. We're on I-94. I-94 is the highway. If you get on it in Detroit, you could drive all the way to Minneapolis. You can go a long way. I studied Russian history. I don't know if there's any, it's true. No, it's okay.
What brought you into Russian?
Well, I was thinking about that the other day, actually, because I don't know why, but when I was in high school, I decided to study Russian. And I was thinking about why I did that, and because I really don't, I mean, it's not, I hadn't thought about it in a long time.
Girl,
Those would all be good answers, but it's not, I think, you know, this afternoon we're going to talk about managing ourselves and getting to know ourselves. And the reason I was thinking about this is because the next book, which is not going to be out for a while, but I'm working on a lot about beliefs and the role of organizational life. And I was just thinking about my own choices all the time to kind of go to where the underdog is, to go where everybody else isn't. And so, I don't know, it was in the 70s, everybody was studying French and Spanish. It's like, and it was the middle of the Cold War. I'm like, I'm gonna take Russian. Which tells you a lot about me. But it worked out. I don't remember but 15 words, but I took 5 years of it. Anyway, I studied Russian history. After you graduate with a degree in history, there's nothing you can do with that degree except get a job in a restaurant or go back to school. I chose getting a job in a restaurant. One of my roommates was waiting tables in one. I didn't really have a great personal vision. My vision was mostly not to go home. In order to do that, I needed a job. I had driven a cab while I was in school, which wasn't all that much fun. My roommate seemed to be having a good time at his job, so I went in there hoping to wait tables. They told me that sounded great, and they would call me as soon as something opened. And I waited 2 weeks, and they hadn't called me, so I decided I'd go back and try again. So I went back, and I suggested, trying to be positive and proactive, maybe they could hire me to bus tables, and if I did good work, they could promote me. And they said that also sounded like a good plan. They would call me. And I waited about 2 more weeks till my money was almost completely run out, and I went back and I was like, look, I really got to work. Do you have anything? And they said, well, how about washing dishes? And I had never worked in food, so I didn't know you weren't really supposed to want to wash dishes. So I just volunteered, yeah, of course I'll wash dishes, great. And they said, can you start tonight? And I said, sure. So that's how I started in food. You know, the great entrepreneurial story would be that I had loved food and cooking from the time I was a little boy. My mother was an outstanding cook, and that we were traveling the country, going to the best restaurants, always focusing on this. From the time I was 9 or 10, it was clear to me I was going to have my own place, and I should write a book that says that, but none of that's true. As I said, those of you who were here last year or last night, I grew up on Mrs. Paul's fish sticks, Kraft macaroni and cheese, green Jell-O with pears, Cheetos, Fritos, Twinkies, Pop-Tarts, Tang, all that, right? So science then dictates that that diet will get you to greatness. No, just kidding, I wouldn't recommend it at all. More like I survived it. My mother was a great woman, but not a great cook. And no one in my family was in business, so unlike Gary's son, I didn't grow up thinking about business, paying any attention to business. Business to me was like General Motors, and there was no way I was going in there. So I had never had the intention of getting into business. So I feel really lucky because I just accidentally stumbled into great work. I love the food. I love the food business. I love cooking. I love working with the people, both the customers and with the staff. I also met great people. So Paul Saginaw, who's been my partner in all this from the beginning, was the general manager at that restaurant. That's how we met. Frank Carollo, who's one of the partners in our bakery where those coffee cakes come from, was a line cook. And Maggie Bayless from Zinc Tree was a cocktail waitress. So I have no idea why we were all in there together, but we're now 37 years later. We still like each other. And it's still fun to work together, which is pretty cool. Doesn't happen every day in life. So I started prepping and line cooking, so my background's all back of the house. I'm looking at Stephanie because she works in food, so she understands what I'm talking about. Fall of '81, it had become increasingly clear to me that their organizational values and mine, especially around food quality and around people management, were slowly but surely separating. It wasn't a cataclysmic problem. They're not a bad company. It's not like they were horrible employers. It's not like they were serving McDonald's level food. But I just kept learning more, and I wanted to do more, try to bring in better ingredients, try to manage people in sort of different creative ways, and they weren't that interested. So it had become clear to me we were on different paths, and that the further we went in the future, either I was going to be unhappy or they were going to be unhappy with me. And so I gave 2 months notice, not knowing what I was going to do, and Paul called me like 2 days later, and he had grown up in Detroit where you could get good deli food, and I grew up in Chicago where you could get it, and you couldn't get it in Ann Arbor. And so we went and looked at this little building and thought about opening a deli. And 4.5 months later, we opened. It's 1,300 square feet. The building was built in 1902. It's not the angle of the screen. It really is an angle front to the building. You can't really see it, but it's on an old brick street. 1,300 square feet, 29 seats, 25 sandwiches, some bread from other bakeries, a little bit of salami, pastrami, olive oil, mustard, honey, all that kind of stuff squeezed into those 1,300 square feet, plus me and Paul and 2 employees. And that's how we started. If you look at page 4 in your workbook, it'll give you our current state. "33 years later, we're an overnight success. We have about 700 employees in the organization. We hire about 300 more at the holidays. So as I was saying last night, if you're bored with what you do here and you really love cold, snow, and hard work, come on up for 3 or 4 weeks and we'll hire you to work mail order. And you can come back after New Year's and Louisiana will still be here. All our businesses our vision is that we only do businesses in the Ann Arbor area. So they're all within about 15, 20 minutes of each other. Our vision is that we only do each thing once, so that I'm not saying it's right for you, but for us, we don't like to copy things. So each of these is a unique business, but we're one organization with these semi-autonomous pieces. So everybody interacts with each other, but each business runs independently within that. Okay, sort of like the United States with the states within it, right? And each business, we have a managing partner or partners in it, which are people who have a passion for what that business does. So Frank with baking, Charlie, Frank at the candy company. Those of you who had a candy bar before, they're very good. And they actually own part of the business. So they sign on the loans, their house is on the line like ours is, et cetera, okay? So this is kind of what we do. The Roadhouse is sit-down regional American food from all over the country, beers, bourbons, oysters, a lot of good southern food too. Cornman Farms is our newest thing. So when I was here last year, we had our farm, the agricultural part, but over the course of the last year, we renovated the 1830s barn and farmhouse on the adjacent property, which we bought, and now we're doing events in there, weddings, corporate events, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole barn came down, went to Ohio beam by beam, got cleaned by a couple who are barn rights. If you're looking for a change of career, that's a profession you might not have considered. Came back, we put it back up, and now we're hosting amazing weddings. And it's a beautiful thing is the wedding party could like go out, pick the vegetables, bring it back, and it could be served on their table 3-4 hours later. It's pretty cool. So that's what we do. What Zingerman's questions you got before I keep going?
You find that the fact that you're in a college town is a plus in terms of attracting good employees?
Is a college town a plus in terms of attracting good employees? Yes and no. I love the, y'all don't say a lot, but you look at me funny. Okay.
Don't indict the rest of the group for dialogue.
It wasn't yours, it was O'Day. It was the 4th one.
Okay, to add on to that,
Yeah.
because it's a suitcase college where they pack up and they go home on weekends.
They go home,
On the weekends.
no,
Or in holidays and stuff.
on holidays, yes. But we have a lot of out of state, like I was. So there's a lot of East Coast, West Coast people from abroad, that sort of thing. So it's not a community college. Anyway, so it's a natural law of business or of life that strengths lead to weaknesses and vice versa. Whatever is a positive, if you carry it far enough in its continuum, will lead to the weakness. So the good news is we have a lot of young people who, in a good way, are exposed to a lot of different ideas, and that's a seemingly great labor pool. The bad news is they all want to go home at the times we're busiest. Many of them are in existential life crises, which can cause them to make a 10-year commitment on Monday and then be moving to another city on Friday, and it doesn't seem to be a big disconnect for them. You know, and is true for many people. I'm sure it was true for me at that age. You know, it's like you often bite off more in life than you could chew, so to speak, and so they think they can work 30 hours a week while taking a full load of courses. You plan accordingly, and then 3 weeks later they're overwhelmed and can barely work at all. So these kind of things can create problems. What I would say is more helpful is that in a college, what I like in a college town is that there's a lot of diversity of everything. And so people are changing, they're exposed to different ideas, there's a lot of art and music, learning is encouraged. The downside is, because the strength leads to the weakness, everybody's leaving. So unlike here, every August the whole town goes into a mental gymnastics of whether they should stay for another year. Whereas in a place like this, it's more like you're staying and it's a big move to leave. There, it's like a big move to stay. And I don't mean literally everybody's leaving, but there's a much more of a mindset around coming and going. Does that help? Other questions?
I don't have a question.
Yes?
I guess a statement. I know it's probably somebody in here was in the military. I just want to say happy veterans day to anybody that served our country.
Thank you. I appreciate that. In the food business, I forget, we don't remember holidays because we're just open every day anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Okay, no questions? You okay? You look so serious and grim. That's just, it's nothing. It's not me. Don't take it personal. Okay. So one of the more interesting questions I get asked in business is, so like when you guys opened, did you ever imagine it was going to be like this? I'm like, I didn't even think I'd live to be 30. No, I didn't imagine this at all. We imagined something, but it's 30, like when you're 25, it's hard to imagine that you'll be there 33 years later, let alone what the business is going to be like. That said, we've spent the last 33 years, I guess in hindsight, working our butts off, studying life, studying business, and trying to figure out how to make it all come together to create something that's beneficial for us owning the business, for the people working in the business, for the customers coming to the business, for the vendors selling to the business, and to the whole community at large. Yes, sir?
I like the win-win concept for the whole circle, but I was curious when you were talking about that. Have you guys ever taken an idea, put it into production, and it's not on this list anymore?
Yeah, there's one that failed, was a produce market, fresh produce. Mostly, excuse me, it failed because the partnership didn't work out. If we have time later, I'll tell you more. It's very funny now. It wasn't that funny at the time. 20 years later, it's hilarious. So yeah, you know, I think that we fail every day.
Right.
Like I get interviewed, I just happened last week. They want to know what's your biggest failure and what's your biggest success. I'm like, it's so irrelevant. Like what I want to look at is this tiny little failures which are happening every 2 minutes. Every minute there's some customer getting slightly subpar service. There's some product going out with slightly too little salt. There's somebody who didn't get greeted with a good enough smile. That's what I'm really focused on, because those are the things that later they shine a spotlight and say it was a disaster. I'm like, the hurricane comes quickly, but we're not dealing with that. What we're dealing with are very small successes and very small failures, and I want to appreciate the small successes and minimize the small failures, because those are really what, they don't make great articles in newspapers, but they actually are what's more important. Like buildings don't just crumble instantly. The bricks were decaying, the foundation wasn't sound, people didn't do good maintenance, and then one day it all falls down and it's a disaster. I prefer to avoid the disasters. Does that help?
Yeah, sounds like you read The Slight Edge by Jay Olson maybe once.
I haven't read it at all. What's it called?
The Slight Edge, that's his whole business philosophy, just small decisions compounded over time creates success.
Yeah, it's true. It's true in everything. I mean, it's true in sports. They all show you the highlight of the one amazing play, but it's like, what about all the people that missed the free throws 2 minutes into the game? Like, all they want to show you is the guy who made or missed the shot at the end. I'm like, dude, this other guy missed 4 free throws 2 minutes into the game. If he had made those 4 free throws, it would have been irrelevant whether they made the last shot. So it's really more about the basics and doing the little things right, I believe, en route to greatness. That's what makes it happen. Okay, so a lot of what I'm going to share with you over the course of this morning is the learning that we've done that has helped us stay sane and helped us be successful. It's not glamorous. Like, I can't tell you that what I'm teaching you this morning translates into an additional 20% sales growth. But what I can tell you is if we hadn't done what I'm going to share with you, I wouldn't be standing here. I don't even know if I'd be in the food business still, because I would have quit, gone crazy. Paul and I would have ended our relationship as partners. Things would not be what they are now, which is that I love what I'm doing even more now, and it's the opposite of what Gary described this morning, which is instead of complaining, the only complaint I got is that I wish I had more time to do more learning, more teaching, more tasting, more cooking, more traveling, because it's so much fun. And if you would have told me that we were going to have 700 employees and I would like it, I would have thought you were crazy. If you would have told me I was speaking to groups of 1,500 people, I would have rolled my eyes, because I'm a very shy introvert who doesn't like being in any group more than 3. But it became increasingly hard to run a large organization without talking to anybody. And I know, because I tried. And I failed. O'Day.
And you put yourself out in the beginning as an anarchist.
Well, the anarchist stuff I studied in school, and I liked it. And when I started managing people before we opened, I tried sort of leaving everybody alone in the naive belief they would all just self-direct themselves to the right thing, and that failed miserably. So for years I would say I was a lapsed anarchist because I still believed in it, but I didn't practice. But then when I was working on the business books, I just coincidentally started to reread a lot of the stuff I hadn't looked at in like 30 years, and I found all this stuff in there that I clearly had been drawn to but had kind of forgotten, which was all this stuff about how organizations' role is to help the people in it develop, how you can't have a great organization without great people, how when people don't believe in their work that they're doing, they don't do good work, how when people aren't treated as whole creative individuals, and they're demeaned instead, that the quality of the work they do will go down, about how important free choice is, about how important spirit and passion and soul and poetry and all this stuff is. And I'm like, this is how we run the company. So although I didn't intend consciously to do it, it was in me. And so there's quite a bit in the books about that. And anarchism, I mean, I don't want to do a whole talk on it, but the public's perception is it's about chaos and throwing bombs, and that's completely not correct. It's about free choice, respect for every individual, people freely choosing to work together to help the community. And that's been true for eternity, and it's going to be true for eternity. So I believe in people. Does that help?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think one of the things that might help everyone here is that we're all here, we're the potential leaders, we're the theoretical leaders, we're the business owners. How do you really get this to transcend from us down to our people who really don't want to buy in? They really could give a shit. So there you go on another meeting today, you read another book, you're going to be excited for a week, and then we're going to do everything we can to get you back to work and stop talking about this.
Okay. I'm going to teach you something I'm going to teach this afternoon, because Gary and I were talking about it last night and it's relevant. And then what you're asking about is what's going to happen in stage 3 of your organizational development. So I'm actually going to teach this afternoon, but O'Day's question, I can't resist teaching it now because I've been working on it a lot. So I learned this from Bob Wright. Wayne's got his book Transformed over in his office. If you want to go, excuse me, look at it. It's a cycle, self-fulfilling belief cycle. Here's how it works. We all have beliefs. I'm not talking about religion. O'Day just shared a few beliefs of his, and I'm not picking on him. Well, he doesn't mind if I pick on him. He kind of likes it. Did you pick up on his beliefs? He shared two beliefs in there, I believe. Think about what he said. Okay, so that's actually another one. That's a positive one. What else? What beliefs did he share about the people in the business? It's hard to translate it. They don't get it. What else?
They don't maintain the momentum.
They're going to go down. They're not going to stay on the ups. Okay, what happens when we have a belief, any sort of belief, is it will lead us to take some actions. It's true in everything in life. So if, for example, I believe that I don't have much, people don't really care about what I say, when I go to a meeting, what action am I likely to take? I don't say anything. My action will lead the others there to form some beliefs about me. What are they likely to believe if I don't say much ever? I don't care, I don't have much to say. That'll lead them to take action. What are they likely to do when they see me or are interacting with me based on the belief that I don't have much to say or don't care? What are they going to do? They don't talk to me, which just, I'm like, see, I knew they didn't care what I said. Nobody talks to me. What I used to do was focus on this, the action that was coming out of this. But what Bob Wright taught me is stop focusing on this and start looking deeper. Go back to the beliefs, because 90–80% of the time, the issue is not their action, it's my belief. If I change my belief, the odds are very high this action's going to change. Okay, so picking on O'Day, because he's a nice guy and I know him already from being down here. If he changes it, I'm going to forecast. I believe that if he changes his belief, and it's not easy to do, it's easy for me to say, but changing your belief can take years, because he and I are not 18 or 12, we got a lot of years of forming our beliefs. If he changes his belief, in my opinion, and his belief becomes people are going to do good work and they're going to be eager to learn what I bring them, what will happen to his personal energy when he goes in to interact with them? If he believes they're eager to learn and they're going to probably succeed, most of them, what will happen to his energy? It's going to improve. When he takes action, if he believes they're going to do good work, get excited and stay with this, what kind of actions is he likely to take? Positive ones. Like what might he do you think? If he likes what I have to say or some pieces of what I have to say and he wants to use it, what kind of action might he take if he now believes that people are going to stick with this stuff and do good work?
He's going to share more of it.
Share more of it. If he believes that people aren't going to stick with it, what would he have been likely to do?
Conceal that.
Yeah, it's not that he wants to hide it, it's just why bother? He's already busy. They're not going to listen anyway. Why tell him? But now we change this, so instead of his action being withholding it or not getting into it or kind of looking exhausted, he's excited now. I got these great people. They're going to love learning this. Not all of them, 1 or 2 of them going to fail, but I got 9, 10 people, 7 or 8 of them probably going to catch on, and 4 or 5 might really rocket forward. So he brings better energy and he shares this stuff. What are they likely to believe? Besides, he went to some weird guy from Michigan and now he changed everything. What else are they likely to believe? If he comes in with high energy and he shares some new ideas and tells them that he believes in them, what are they likely to think?
He expects they can do it.
He believes in them. What else are they likely to believe?
They can do it.
That they can do it. Now, they're kind of motivated by his belief in them, and they got some new learning going on. What are they likely to do?
Be successful and do it.
Be more successful. Will they be perfect? No. The best athlete in the world still makes mistakes. The #1 draft choice in whatever sport that you find screws up regularly. They weren't drafted #1 because they're perfect. It's because they got the ability to grow and learn. But 2 or 3 of them might come back and go, "O'Day, I was thinking about what you said." He'd be shocked. Now, if he gets really good, he could structure it. And he could say, I know you're going to be thinking about this, and I'm really interested in what you reflect on it over the next week. Let's meet again on Monday for coffee. I'm buying. And you come back and tell me what you learned. Whoa. So now the structure will even help. It's not just the 3 or 4 that were inspired, but the structure will bring up some of the other ones. Is this making sense? So what I'm just suggesting is we focus here, not here. Changing this doesn't guarantee this will change, but it significantly increases the odds. And over time, you learn a lot. So if he structures it and he says, bring me back 2 things you learned over the course of the week from what I shared with you, and 3 of the employees bring nothing back, what does that tell you about the employees? They're probably not for you. But it's now a performance issue. It's very concrete. I want to believe in you. I asked you to bring back 2 learnings. I've been here with you all week. You didn't ask for help. What should I take away from that conversation? So my point is we can change this and start to get different results. Does that help? I think that the work, I would suggest the work as you develop as an organization becomes more to teach the other people how to run the business and less about teaching them how to do the work. It's not about how to cook. It's about how to run a restaurant. When you learn how to run a restaurant, you have to cook. Just like a basketball player has to make baskets, the violinist has to play the violin. But the point is, if you understand how the whole orchestra works, you're going to play violin better. If you understand how basketball works, you're going to play better. If you understand how a restaurant runs, when you're cooking, you make better decisions.
I guess the answer is a little different from 30 years ago.
Totally.
But my question is it, at what point when you're dealing with your employees and you realize they're not giving me the right answer, is it cheaper just to say, you know, you're not right for us? Or do you try to, what's the tipping point there?
Can you all hear the question?
At what point do you go another direction?
Yeah. There's no perfect answer. There's a couple, this again comes back to beliefs and it comes back to strengths lead to weaknesses. There's no perfect point, okay? I believe in people and I believe that anybody can learn anything if they decide that they want to learn it. My job is to help them decide to learn it. Strengths lead to weaknesses. We stay with people probably too long sometimes, but I prefer that to the other extreme, which is getting rid of them too soon, because some of our best people were almost going to get fired and didn't, and we moved them and we stayed with them, and now they're fabulous. Some of our best people did get fired, and we hired them back. It's true. Why not? Why? Because we believed in people. So when you believe in people, just coming back to this because it's on my mind, if you believe in people that they're trying to do the right thing and that in the end they're probably going to do well, then you take actions like that. You go back and have another meeting. You coach them a little more. You give them a second chance. Has anybody ever had a second chance in here in their life from somebody? Yeah. Did you appreciate it? Did it mean more than the first chance? Absolutely. Has anybody, to Oday's question, had somebody in their life that believed in them when others did not? And how did that go? It's very inspiring. So what I'm saying is we have the chance as we learn this. Did I understand this in 1982? No, not at all. In 1982, I made a lot of sandwiches, cleaned up, washed dishes, ordered the food. I mean, we were fun to work with. I don't mean we were like total jerks, but I didn't understand this.
But you've created over 30 years a culture where
Right.
everybody sort of gets, I would think,
Yeah,
part of your mission.
it does, but we work really hard at it.
Right.
And what I'm suggesting is most businesses don't even think about it. They're still playing pickup basketball and then they're mad because the stands aren't filled, the marketing was bad, and all they want to do is put the ball in the hoop and play ball, let's go. And it's like, dude, you have 150 employees. That's not the point anymore. I can't even get on the sandwich line anymore because it's changed so much. I used to make 50% of the sandwiches.
It's not because your mustard is good or bad, it's the rest of the
Yeah. No, now the mustard still has to be good. Don't get me wrong. The quality of the product and the service is integral. It's just the work becomes working on the business, not working in the business. You with me? Does this help? Okay, so let's just quickly look at page 5. And then we're going to move forward from there and come back to some of what y'all are asking about. So one of the things that happens as you grow, like the training compact, is that it becomes more important to have tools that other people can learn what you and I as leaders have kind of internally already accepted. If it helps you, you can start thinking about your business like a school. Because the people that are coming into our organization, the better they learn about business, how do you think we're doing? If they're clueless about business and all it is me and Paul trying to do everything except make the sandwiches, how do you think that's going to go with 700 people? Not well. In fact, what's going to happen is the decisions that they make out of ignorance, and I don't mean they're ignorant people, it's just no one's taught them, the decisions they make out of ignorance will be totally opposed to the decisions that Paul and I are making over here because we know so much more. They're missing all the information. Then they make dumb decisions. Then we yell at them. That's fun.
Did you find when you educated the person about the entire business model and you took on that theology that your turnover also went down dramatically?
Yeah, it's all an ecosystem. Each piece contributes to the other. That's just one little piece. Page 5 is a tool that we developed, again, about 12 years in when we started Zing Train. Maggie taught us what's now common knowledge in the school system, but was not common knowledge 20 years ago in the restaurant industry, which is that different people like to learn in different ways. Today, that's common knowledge, but it was not common knowledge back then. And Paul and I were into learning, but we didn't think about that. We didn't know anything about it. So she said, a lot of the people that you hire don't want to read like you do. They would benefit from visual models. And she was right. So we designed this visual model. It took a good year of her, Paul, and I arguing, disagreeing, trying to fit these pieces together. It's not a casual thing. Because getting to greatness, whether it's making a pizza, developing a new product, figuring out a new clothing line you're going to sell, it's a lot of work. But it's good work. So we didn't view this as, oh, I can't believe we have to make this model for the employees. What a drag. They should know this. What's wrong with the school system? I don't want to have to do this. I just want to make sandwiches. See, we could have gone down that path. That was so believable you all were thinking. We were really thinking that. Instead, we're like, you're right. It's not their fault. How would they know? I didn't know. And I'm fairly smart, and I had a very high-end education at University of Michigan. I come from a well-educated family. I couldn't have explained any of this at all. I knew a lot about the history of Russia, but I couldn't have explained any of this. We teach this to every employee now, early on in their training, and we teach it in every internal class that we do, and I'm going to teach it to you, okay? In the border, in very small letters, it says Zingerman's Experience. That's a reference back to the previous page that has our mission statement on there, okay? Did we have a mission statement when we opened a business? No. Did we fail? No. Should we have had when we opened? I don't know, but we didn't. We wrote it about 10 years in. I wrote about it in the first business book, which is the yellow one. I used to think mission statements were a waste of time when we opened. My experience, so my belief about them was they were a waste of time. And consequently, we didn't write one. I used to think they were bad poetry that got hung by customer bathrooms, and I never saw the point. Sometimes beliefs change. I think I read something which changed my beliefs about mission statements, and then we started to work to do it. Okay, in 1991, we spent 6 months writing the mission and our guiding principles, our values. We got about 80 of the 100 people at the deli got involved. Because by the early 90s, we were already starting to understand that it wasn't about the owner. It was about involving everyone in making smart and big decisions because they're then learning in practical sense how a business runs. So imagine you're now 22 and you got a job after college making sandwiches at Zingerman's. You probably didn't come there thinking, this is like going to grad school. You came there thinking, I don't know what to do. I need a job. This seems like an okay place to work. I'll make sandwiches. But all of a sudden you're sitting in a meeting and they're teaching you about guiding principles and the role of ethics in business. And they're asking for your input on what the values of this company should be. What do you think belief is likely to come out of that interaction for the employee? Confidence. What else? You're 22, you've been working as a sandwich maker for 6 months, and all of a sudden the owners of this business are sitting with you asking for your input on writing values and guiding principles for the business that you're working in. What might be your reaction?
These people, you really do care about me.
Okay, we really care about you. What else? You're important. Why would we want them to believe they're important? Because they are important. Who cares how good I wanted this sandwich to be? It's irrelevant. What matters is how good they made it. So unless you want to be the one making the equivalent in your business of every sandwich, it's kind of good if they believe that their work is important, because if they serve you a bad sandwich, you don't really go, oh, Ari and Paul are nice guys. I don't care, I'll just keep eating bad ones. You stop coming. So if they believe they're important, what else starts to happen? Do you think the average sandwich maker in America has given a lot of thought to ethics in business? No, only when they read about bad ethics. All of a sudden they're thinking about it. Now this is where the university might have been helpful, because some of them might have had classes where they talked about philosophy or education or social work or whatever. And all of a sudden all that stuff they learned in school is now relevant. Is this making sense? Okay, so the mission statements as we learned it and teach it are meant to answer 4 questions. What do you do as an organization? Why are you doing it? Who are you that's doing it? And for whom are you doing it? So what do you do? Why are you doing it? Who are you that's doing it? And for whom are you doing it? As a little startup with 2 employees, did we need that? No. We did everything. We were there all the time. Wasn't relevant. 120 employees and 10 years later, we weren't doing everything. Yes, ma'am?